In the late 1990s, Harvard scientist Robert Sampson and his colleagues decided to probe more deeply into the connection between crime and poverty. They wanted to know answers to questions that plague broken places, like the inner-city neighborhoods of Chicago. In particular, they asked, what are the social processes that explain why poor neighborhoods have more crime? And yet, why is it that some poor communities actually have low crime rates? And perhaps their most important question was, what are the social processes that distinguish poor neighborhoods that from the outside seem exactly alike but have different rates of homicides and other crimes? At the time Sampson started his research in Chicago, the prevailing belief was that cities could reduce crime by implementing the broken windows policy. So broken windows left unrepaired are one of a number of incivilities. Things like trash-strewn vacant lots or unruly teenagers. The broken windows theory stated that if police arrested people for small quality-of-life crimes, like harassing people at a bus stop or throwing a rock through a window, neighborhoods would feel safer and people would be less likely to commit serious crimes. The Fixing Broken Windows policy worked. Crime rates went down. But Sampson and his colleagues felt that police, who most often were outsiders to the communities they patrolled, were only part of the picture of how to reduce crime. So police were what Sampson called formal or external controls of what went on in a community. And the scientists observed that if you got an outside crew to clean up the mess, it would stay clean for a couple of weeks, but then it would just go back to where it was before. The scientists had a hunch that something was happening in neighborhoods with lower crime, something coming from within the neighborhood, what they called informal social controls. Informal social controls are things like adults who are willing to watch over groups of children playing on the sidewalk, or adults willing to demonstrate tough love to neighborhood teenagers who are skipping school and hanging out on the street corner, and neighbors who are willing to say something to other adults who are yelling or otherwise disturbing people in parks and public spaces. The scientists wanted to know how informal social controls affect crime and might even impact broader actions like the willingness of a community to advocate for better garbage collection or more equitable policing. They had a hunch that something from within the community, not just the police, was present in neighborhoods that were plagued by poverty, but not by crime. To answer their questions about the impact of informal social controls on crime and on a community's willingness to advocate for the public good, Sampson and his colleagues pored over neighborhood crime statistics, and they also surveyed neighborhood residents about whether community members were willing to intervene to stop incivilities. But they also did something that was really, really cool. They actually drove an SUV at 5 miles an hour down more than 11,000 city blocks. And this SUV had cameras mounted on both sides. So as the SUV drove by, the cameras recorded all the social activities and physical features along the way. Not only the litter, graffiti, drug deals, and public drinking, but also things that were more hopeful. And they found evidence of activities that were going on in the neighborhood that would help answer their questions about why some poor neighborhoods had lower crime rates. Across from a housing project was a garden of kale and tomatoes, and with a sign that said, "Please respect our efforts." It turns out that community gardens were one of the things the scientists found in neighborhoods with lower crime rates. The researchers concluded that community gardens and signs telling people to respect their efforts to transform a vacant lot into something of beauty were evidence of collective efficacy. Collective efficacy is about whether residents believe that their neighbors are willing to intervene for the common good. Collective efficacy depends on trust and solidarity among neighbors, or social capital. But social capital, like sense of community, can be deployed for good, but also for bad. So gangs have strong connections or social capital, and gangs help their members feel a sense of community. Collective efficacy, in contrast, is about mobilizing trust and social connections for the common good, and it's about the willingness of people to intervene for the good of their neighborhood. According to Sampson, what's important is a working trust, a sense of civility. That's why stop and frisk programs carried out by police are counterproductive. These actions increase alienation and cynicism. Neighborhoods with high levels of legal and moral cynicism are where violence persists. In short, collective efficacy is about two things. It's about willingness to intervene and social connectedness. And a community garden with a sign about respect in Chicago, or a mural painted by street artists that celebrates life, are evidence that a neighborhood can defy crime statistics, can demonstrate collective efficacy. Sampson's Harvard colleague Felton Earle summarized the relationship of collective efficacy to civic ecology practices when he said, "Cities that sow community gardens demonstrate collective efficacy. They reap a harvest of not only kale and tomatoes, but safer neighborhoods and healthier children." Similar to social capital and sense of community, collective efficacy enables civic ecology practices to emerge. And all three of these things that allow people and communities to connect also are built or demonstrated through civic ecology practices.